Hey, this is Strolls from 8Dio, and today we're going to be taking a look at our Adagio Violas Ensemble Dynamic Bowings Sordino, so essentially the muted strings for our viola ensembles. The patch here, which only contains Sordino samples, is primarily sort of divided into three categories. We've got some long dynamic bowings up here and some longer ones with more strong tensions, a little more dramatic arc. We've got our two bows, which is essentially playing two times on the bow with a sort of mid-arc feeling, and then we got some shorter ones here that are great for sort of waltzy, more fast type of compositions. So I think one of the concepts with the dynamic bowings that Colin and I have been experimenting with is almost a counter reaction to where we are with the current generation and even previous generation of string libraries, where the predominant philosophy was that, well, we can crossfade things. We can crossfade between dynamic ranges, so you can crossfade from piano to forte, and we can even crossfade between non-vibrato to vibrato. The reality is that that's a neat concept, and we obviously have it in Adagio as well, and it's very effective for some things, but it also fails in other capacities. There are simply things that cannot be crossfaded, and a real string does not remotely crossfade. As you put more tension on it, for example, then it morphs. It doesn't just crossfade. It's a much more complicated thing going on. And I think one of the things we're trying to cover with dynamic bowings is exactly the phenomena of what happens when you go between dynamic ranges, but also what happens when a player naturally plays. They do, the vibrato gets more intense, the speed of the vibrato gets more intense. Vibrato is not just a volume thing, it's also the speed of the actual vibrato itself. So in this demo, I'm just gonna be noodling around a little bit and try to play a little bit with the patch so you can hear what the intention of what we're trying to do with the dynamic bowings here. And obviously, it's a very elaborate concept. This is just the Sordinos for the ensemble. We also have Divisi and Solo in the library, and obviously we have non-Sordino, which is even more elaborate. So we had a crazy amount of dynamic bowings in this. We think it's a really interesting concept to add on to the existing sort of crossfade model. So let me try to just play here. Let me start playing some of the slower arcs. And you can see, like here, I'm sort of going key switching between the different types of dynamics of these ones, from the sort of longer, softer ones to the more expressive ones. And it's a really good trick in terms of sculpting your composition that way. Another thing we did with the violas as well is that we redefined our recording technique a little bit for some of the stuff to create more voicing in the sound spectrum. So essentially when you listen, I'm going to try to play a little more elaborate chords here, maybe 6-7 notes. And try to listen for the detail. Keep in mind, this is ensemble. This is a full ensemble, and when I play 7 notes, it's essentially 7 times the ensemble size. And yet you can still hear a lot of space, air. You can hear almost the individual player as well. And if you even wanted to do more of that, you could of course add Divisi and Solo to it. But just check it out. I think it's pretty interesting how much detail we got in it. So that's I think that's 7 notes right there, and still some clarity in the sound picture. I think it's interesting actually with the viola as well. It's sort of an underrated instrument, I think, versus the predominant violins that catches the high range and the melody, and of course the ear picks up on that, and the wonderful, beautiful cellos underneath. But you think about the viola, it's actually the glue between the two others. And it's also the glue in terms of voicing. And when you hear these Sordinos, to me, they sound exactly like almost the vision of what I wanted Sordino violins to sound like. But the violins don't sound anything like that. Here you get a little more color, a little more depth in the tone. Let me try another example. Try to just fool around a little with the short notes here. Let's try a little waltz. Like a harder articulation. We also have our two bows, and it's something we've experimented with more and more. It's ironic if you think about the most common notion on the strings to play up and down, and granted that's been covered in the past with spiccato and stuff like that, but the fluent notion go up, down, hasn't really been covered. So besides from our lurets, which is really about covering that aspect, such a common motion on the string, we also have it for our dynamic bowings, and you can do a lot, even just with one single patch. A lot of expression in it that again is very hard to mod wheel yourself out of. I should also mention that in these patches, if you use the pitch bender, you can actually control the timing of it. It's very hard to tempo sync these things because they're recorded with sort of more expressive, natural way. But we've figured out a way for you to control them essentially using time, stretching, compression on the pitch bender, so you can make them match your tempo as well. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this video. Take care and thank you for watching.